Welcome, everyone. We're about to explore some truly fascinating accounts today. We'll be looking at figures believed by some to have a role or maybe even still be present right up until the end of time.
That's right. We've gathered insights from various sources, particularly focusing on traditions and texts within Islam, like the Quran, that talk about these individuals.
And you've asked us to really get into this. This exploration is brought to you by Signs of Final Days. That's our channel, where we look into the signs and events pointing towards the final era. So stay with us.
Absolutely. These are narratives where spiritual insight, history, and sometimes, different interpretations all come together. It's quite a mix.
Okay, let's dive in. A figure who comes up a lot in these discussions is Hazrat Khizar, often called Al-Khidr. And one of the most intriguing things right off the bat is this debate among scholars, is he even alive now? What exactly is his status?
Exactly. There are layers to his identity. Al-Khidri is his famous title, meaning the green one. But according to different accounts, his name might be Badia bin Malkin, and his kunya, sort of an honorific Abu al-Abbas.
And there's that lovely story in the sources about why he's called the Green One, isn't there? Something about the ground turning green where he sat.
Yes, it's attributed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The saying goes he sat on a white sheepskin, and the very ground beneath it became green. It connects him to life, to flourishing.
Wow. And historically, these accounts place him around the time of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him.
Generally, yes, deep antiquity.
So this leads to a big question the sources tackle. What was he? An angel in human form? A wali, like a saint? Or a nabi, a prophet?
And that's where you find significant scholarly discussion. Some respected figures like Imam Nawawi and Ibn Hajar, according to these sources, actually lean towards him being an angel, sent in human form for specific tasks.
An angel walking among us. That's quite a concept. What about the other views?
While some Sufi traditions see him more as a very high-ranking wali, a righteous person with special knowledge, but maybe not quite prophetic rank. They often point to his story with Musa in Surah Al-Kahf.
Yes, the story in Surah Al-Kahf, we definitely need to get into that. But the sources also mention a view that was, well, let's say it stirred things up.
Yes, and it's important we present this accurately based on the sources. Some individuals, like Hakim al-Tirmidhi, apparently suggested that a wali could potentially be superior to a nabi, or even a sahaba, a companion of the Prophet Muhammad.
And that didn't go over well.
No. According to the accounts, that met with very strong scholarly rejection. It was seen as contradicting fundamental Islamic beliefs, to the point where Hakim al-Tirmidhi was reportedly expelled from his city because of it. The consensus firmly upholds the superiority of prophets.
So the general agreement we find in these texts is that Prophet Musa was definitely superior to Hazrat Khizar.
That's the prevailing view, yes. The sources clarify that having knowledge of certain hidden things, like Khizar demonstrated with Musa, doesn't automatically make someone superior overall.
Right.
They use analogies like, the Hud bird knew something Prophet Solomon didn't, or people in Medina knew more about pollinating dates than the prophet initially did. Specific knowledge doesn't equal overall superiority.
That makes sense. It clarifies the distinction. So what kind of knowledge did Khizar have then?
Some scholars suggest it might have been ilmi cash knowledge revealed through divine insight or vision. Some see this as a part of prophethood, perhaps, but not the whole picture.
Which brings us perfectly to that famous story in Surah Al-Kahf, verses 60 to 82. This really shows that knowledge in action.
It's absolutely key. Prophet Musa, seeking more knowledge, is told to find a specific servant of Allah where two seas meet. The sign involved a fish they were carrying.
Which they then forgot about.
Exactly. They traveled past the spot. Then the fish miraculously came alive and slipped into the sea. Only later did they realize they'd missed the meeting place. So they went back.
And there they found him?
They found a servant from among our servants, as the Quran describes him, whom we had given mercy from us and had taught him from us a certain knowledge. And this was Khizar.
Musa, being eager to learn, asked if he could follow him.
He did, but Khizar immediately warned him, saying something like, "You won't be able to have patience with me," because of the nature of the things he'd witnessed.
But Musa promised patience, didn't he? Though Khizar set a condition.
Yes, Musa promised patience and obedience. Khizar agreed, but said Musa must not ask about anything until Khizar himself explained it.
That sets up quite a test. What happened first?
First, they get on a boat, and Khizar deliberately makes a hole in it. Scuttles it, basically.
And Musa immediately protested, right? Worried about the people on board.
Understandably, he questioned how Khizar could do that. Khizar just reminded him about the promise of patience. Musa apologized.
Okay, test number one. What was the second? Even more startling, I believe.
Much more. They encountered a young boy, and Khizar killed him.
Just like that. Wow. Musa must have been horrified.
Absolutely. He protested strongly, asking how Khizar could kill an innocent soul. Again, Khizar reminded him of the promise. Musa apologized again, saying if he asked one more time, they should part ways.
So the tension is building. What was the third event?
They reached a town, asked for food and shelter, but the townspeople refused them completely. Despite this awful treatment, they saw a wall about to collapse, and Khizar started rebuilding it.
And Musa couldn't resist. He questioned why Khizar would help people who were so inhospitable, saying he should have at least asked for payment.
That was the third strike. Khizar said, "This is the parting between me and you," and then he explained everything.
Okay, the explanations. What about the boat?
The boat belonged to poor fishermen. Further along their route, there was a tyrannical king who was seizing every good boat by force. By damaging it slightly, Khizar made sure the king would overlook it, saving the fishermen's livelihood.
Ah, so it was protection. And the boy. That seems the hardest to understand.
Khizar explained that the boy was destined to grow up rebellious and cause his devout parents immense grief and hardship, maybe even lead them astray. Allah, in his wisdom and mercy, willed to take the boy's life then and grant the parents a better, more righteous child later.
A difficult mercy, seen from a divine perspective. And the wall they fixed for the rude villagers.
That wall belonged to two young orphan boys in the town. Their father had been a righteous man and had buried a treasure for them beneath that wall. Allah willed for the wall to stand, protecting the treasure until the boys were old enough to claim it themselves.
Incredible. Each action had a hidden, compassionate reason rooted in divine knowledge.
Exactly. Khizar emphasized, "I did not do it of my own accord. It was all by Allah's command and mercy." And Musa's impatience came from not having access to that deeper reality.
It really highlights a completely different level of understanding. Now, let's switch gears slightly to that other big debate in the sources. Is Khizar still alive today?
Yes, this is a major point of difference. Many traditional accounts, and indeed many scholars over time, have held the belief that yes, he is still alive, still present in the world somehow.
But there are strong arguments against that too.
Oh, definitely. Scholars like, for instance, Allama ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya, according to the sources, made a compelling case. They argued that if Khizar were alive during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he would have been obligated to seek him out, learn from him, fight alongside the Muslims in battles like Badr.
And they point to specifics.
Yes, like the Prophet's prayer before Badr. He pleaded with Allah, saying if his small band of 313 companions were destroyed, Allah wouldn't be worshipped on earth. The implication being, Khizar wasn't part of that crucial group.
That's a significant point based on the finality of Prophet Muhammad's message. Yet the sources do contain stories suggesting he is alive, right? Some quite remarkable ones.
They certainly do. There's a narration mentioned from Imam ibn Ishaq, linking Khizar's long life to burying Prophet Adam, peace be upon him. Apparently, Adam had prayed for longevity for whoever performed his burial, and Khizar was the one destined to do it.
A life granted for fulfilling an ancient task. Are there accounts of him appearing after Prophet Muhammad's time?
Yes, Imam ibn al-Bar reportedly mentions Khizar expressing condolences after the Prophet's death. The companions apparently heard his voice but couldn't see him, and Hazrat Ilyas is said to have recognized who it was.
Amazing. A hidden presence. And what about these stories connecting him with Hazrat Ilyas, Elijah?
Right, there are several accounts like that, found in sources attributed to figures like Imam ibn al-Jawzi. They suggest Khizar, often associated with the sea, and Ilyas, associated with the land, meet up every year.
Where do they supposedly meet?
Some accounts say Mecca, during the Hajj pilgrimage, where they shave each other's heads. Others mention them meeting and fasting together in Jerusalem, Beit al-Maqdis, during Ramadan. And there's that detail in some versions about them drinking Zamzam water once a year, which sustains them.
These sound like very mystical, ongoing traditions. Did sources also suggest Khizar met the Prophet Muhammad himself?
For those scholars who believe Khizar was alive then, yes, there are narrations describing possible encounters during the Prophet's journeys. And another story tells of the Caliph Umar bin Abdulaziz talking with an old man who vanished. The Caliph identified him as my brother Khizar, who came to offer guidance.
So with Khizar, we have this fascinating figure. Debates about his status, whether he's alive, but consistent themes of special knowledge and involvement in hidden divine plans. What about his role at the end of time?
For those who believe he's alive, accounts suggest he will play a role in confronting the Dajjal, the Antichrist, outside Medina.
Okay, so he ties directly into the major signs. Let's move to another figure often mentioned in this context. Hazrat Ilyas, or Elijah, also mentioned in the Quran.
Yes, the sources point to Surah Al-Kahf, verses 123 to 132. It describes him warning his people against worshiping an idol named Baal, urging them back to Allah.
And his people rejected him.
Most did, yes. They faced punishment, but Allah saved the sincere believers. The Quran confirms his high status, preserving his name and sending peace upon him as a true servant.
Tell us about this idol Baal. Was it significant?
Apparently, yes. Sources describe Baal as a major idol in the ancient Near East. Some historians even speculate that Hubal idol in Mecca might have been related. There are descriptions, perhaps legendary, of it being huge, like 20 feet tall, with hundreds of attendants.
A powerful false god for Ilyas to confront. Where was he sent?
The sources mention Samaria. While the exact location might be debated today, some link it to the area of the Baalbek ruins in Lebanon.
But his message wasn't accepted, especially by the rulers.
Correct. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel led the rejection. The priests of Baal stirred up persecution, and Jezebel reportedly ordered the killing of believers who refused to worship Baal. Many had to hide in caves.
A very dangerous time for faith. Ilyas tried to reason with the king.
He did, but failed. He even faced threats on his own life, forcing him to withdraw, possibly to a cave near Damascus. Some accounts mention Jabal Khazon. He might have stayed hidden there for about 10 years.
10 years. That's a long time. Did he challenge them again when he reappeared?
He did. He proposed a dramatic test on Mount Carmel, calling on Allah to send rain as a sign. The rain came, a clear miracle. But Queen Jezebel remained stubborn, ordering him out of the land.
Even a miracle wasn't enough for her. Now, Ilyas is also part of this discussion about figures potentially still alive.
He is. There's a narration attributed to Ka'b mentioned in the sources that suggests 4 prophets are currently alive. 2 on earth, Ilyas and Khizar, and 2 in the heavens, one being Esa, Jesus, peace be upon him.
Ah, so that narration directly links the 2 we've been discussing, Khizar and Ilyas.
Exactly. And it connects back to those accounts we mentioned earlier about them meeting annually, whether in Jerusalem for Ramadan or Mecca for Hajj, maybe sharing Zamzam water. These stories often pair them together.
It's really striking how consistently they appear together in these traditions. What about Ilyas meeting Prophet Muhammad? Is that discussed?
Similar to Khizar, the sources indicate there's scholarly debate on whether Hazrat Ilyas ever met Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them both.
So for both Khizar and Ilyas, we find this blend of mystery, potential continued existence, these intriguing meeting stories, but also real scholarly questions about their exact status and interactions.
It's a very rich area of narrative and belief. Now let's shift to a group whose story is highlighted in the Quran as a major sign, the Ashab-e-Kahf, the companions of the cave.
Their story is in Surah Al-Kahf, isn't it? And it seems to come from a later period than Musa or Ilyas.
Yes, sources place it in the early Christian era, during the rule of a Roman emperor named Decius, or Decianus, who was known for persecuting Christians and trying to enforce pagan worship.
A time of real danger for believers.
Definitely. The story is about a group of young men who held firm to their Christian faith and refused the emperor's orders to worship idols.
Faced with threats, they fled.
The emperor gave them a deadline to renounce their faith. Instead, they chose refuge in a cave.
And this is where the miracle happens.
Allah caused them to fall into a profound sleep. The sources describe the cave as spacious, allowing air circulation but shielding them from direct sun. Their dog faithfully guarded the entrance, scaring people away.
So they slept, protected. What happened in the world outside?
Centuries passed. According to the accounts, empires rose and fell, society changed drastically, and eventually, the very city they fled from embraced Christianity, the faith they were hiding for.
They literally slept through a religious revolution. What happened when they finally woke up?
They woke up completely disoriented. They whispered among themselves, guessing they'd slept maybe part of a day or a full day at most.
No idea centuries had gone by.
None at all. They needed food, so they sent one of them into the city with an old silver coin they still had, telling him to be very careful, thinking the same persecuting king was still in charge.
You can just imagine his shock entering the city.
It must have been overwhelming. Different buildings, different people, different customs. When he tried to pay for food with his ancient coin, it caused a huge stir. People gathered around, amazed.
They realized he wasn't from their time.
Right. Recognizing the coin's age and perhaps something about him, the townspeople insisted he take them back to the cave to see his companions. The others in the cave were terrified at first, thinking the king's soldiers had found them.
But the crowd wasn't hostile.
No. They approached with reverence, honoring these young men for their incredible faith that spans centuries. They wanted the youth to lead them, but the companions preferred to remain in the cave for their final days.
An amazing story. And the sources say this was one of the questions used to test Prophet Muhammad.
That's right. The Quraysh, apparently prompted by some Jewish scholars in Medina, asked about three things: the Ashab-e-Kahf, the figure known as Dhul Qarnayn, and the nature of the Ruh, the spirit.
And the Quran calls them Ashab al-Kahf wa al-Rakim. We know Kahf means cave, but what's al-Rakim?
There's some debate on that in the sources. Some think Al-Rakim refers to an inscription, maybe a tablet with their names near the cave. Others suggest it might be the name of the mountain or valley where the cave was located.
Any idea where this cave might be?
Sources mention the possibility of it being near the ancient city of Ephesus in modern-day Turkey, near Izmir. It was a significant place historically.
Interesting. The Quran also mentions people disagreed about how many companions there were.
It does. It lists the speculations. Some said 3 plus their dog, some 5 plus the dog, some 7 plus the dog.
But what does the Quran say about the actual number?
It states that Allah knows best, and only a few people truly know the correct number. It advises not to get caught up in arguing about the exact count, suggesting the number isn't the main point. The mystery is part of the lesson.
That's important. Focus on the meaning, not just the minor details. Surah Al-Kahf itself seems especially significant.
Definitely. The sources emphasize it contains many secrets and signs, including this story, the journey of Musa and Khizar, and Dhul Qarnayn.
And it's even linked to protection during the end times.
Yes. There's a well-known hadith where Prophet Muhammad advised that reciting the opening verses of Surah Al-Kahf provides protection for anyone facing the trials of the Dajjal, like how fire became cool for Prophet Ibrahim.
A powerful spiritual connection. Does this story have other theological uses?
According to the sources, yes. Shia Muslims often point to the companions staying alive, hidden in sleep for around 300 solar years, 309 lunar years, as supporting the possibility of their awaited Imam Mahdi being alive, but hidden in major occultation, Kaaba Kubra, until his return. It serves as a sort of precedent.
So it's a story with ongoing relevance. Now, the sources briefly mention a couple of other figures, too, maybe not in the same alive until the end category, as sometimes suggested for Khizar or Ilyas.
Right, they touch on Imam Mahdi again, describing his reappearance leaving Medina for Mecca after a king dies, being recognized at the Kaaba, receiving the Pledge of Allegiance, an army pursuing him being swallowed by the earth, and his eventual battle against the Sufiani leader, killing him and signifying the end of that Quraysh lineage's power.
And Hazrat Yahya, John the Baptist.
He's mentioned because of the discovery of what's believed to be his head during the building of the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus.
A very specific, quite somber detail from the sources.
It is. The accounts relate his martyrdom, beheaded by order of the king of Damascus, supposedly at the request of a woman whose marriage Yahya had declared unlawful. Christians know him as John the Baptist, born about 6 months before Jesus, peace be upon him.
And his resting place, or at least where the head was found, is marked in that mosque.
Yes, within the Umayyad Mosque, a place of great historical and religious significance.
A poignant connection. Okay, finally, let's turn to Hazrat Esa, Jesus, peace be upon him. According to all sources, he is absolutely central with a definite role at the end of time.
Without doubt, he's prominent in the Quran, and Islamic belief, as clarified in the sources, is firm that he was not crucified.
The Quran makes that very clear.
Surah An-Nisa, verses 157 to 158, states they didn't kill him, didn't crucify him, but it was made to appear so to them. The consensus among Muslim scholars is that someone else was made to look like him, while Allah raised Isa himself alive into the heavens.
Raised alive physically. How old was he then?
The sources generally state he was 33 years old at the time of his ascension.
And he is expected to return. Do the sources specify where and when?
They are remarkably specific. His descent is described as being upon the white minaret of the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, near the eastern market entrance. This is expected to happen at the time of Fajr, the dawn prayer.
And who will be there at that moment?
Imam Mahdi is expected to be present in the same mosque, having already stepped forward to lead that Fajr prayer. When Esa appears, accounts say Imam Mahdi will step back, inviting Isa, addressing him as Spirit of Allah, to lead.
But Esa will decline to lead the prayer.
Yes, sources say he will refuse. This is widely interpreted as showing he returns not with a new law, but as a follower of the Sharia of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, acknowledging Imam Mahdi's leadership at that specific time.
It's striking how much clearer and more universally agreed upon Isa's return and role seem to be, compared to the debates around Khizar and Ilyas.
His return is definitely considered one of the major certain signs of the end times.
So we've covered quite a journey today, looking into accounts regarding Hazrat Khizar, Hazrat Ilyas, the Ashab-e-Kahf, Hazrat Yahya, and Hazrat Esa, all figures linked in various ways to the narrative stretching towards the end of time.
We've touched on the mysteries, the scholarly differences, especially concerning Khizar and Ilyas, and the deep signs embedded in stories like those in Surah Al-Kahf.
And we've seen the very specific roles described for figures like Hazrat Esa and potentially Hazrat Khizar in the major events signaling the final days, like the arrival of the Dajjal.
It's certainly a topic that invites a lot of thought about divine plans, history, and prophecy.
This exploration was brought to you by Signs of Final Days. If you found this discussion valuable, please do give this video a like. It really helps support the channel.
And share it with anyone else you think might be interested in these subjects. Most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the Signs of Final Days channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future explorations.
As a final thought to leave you with, considering the mix of certainty around Isa's return versus the mysteries and differing accounts surrounding figures like Khizar and Ilyas, what might this suggest about how knowledge of the end-time signs is revealed or understood? Something to ponder.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration today. We hope it's given you plenty to reflect on.